Well, I guess I'll say a happy new year to everybody. Happy year 2024. It's about 3 a.m. where I am. And I'm getting ready to go to bed, but I'm not ready yet. I'm a little aggravated by a few things going on in my life. But I won't get into those. Well, maybe I will. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, I'm not doing any New Year's resolutions. But I will say that there are definitely some changes that I'm going to make this year. And I think I actually made them before 2024. And one of them is to not deal with nasty, cancerous people. Even if they're in your own family, doesn't matter. Hell, a lot of cases they're the worst ones because they're the ones that think that they're entitled to abuse you and to make your life hell with their bullshit. But anyway, hoping there's a few different things. I'm hoping for some serious change this year, though. Well, I can say that tax season is coming right around the corner now, which what a lot of people will be looking for. I'm not even so concerned about that. I have other things to be concerned about right now, business wise, that I need to get done prior to even concerning myself with the taxes, since they're just going to take my tax money to Ukraine or Israel or wherever other place they want to fund a war or genocide. So you know, not like I should be in that big of a hurry to pay them. I mean, I'm going to because it's the law, and I don't want any trouble with it affecting my life in the general sense. But at the same time, I'm definitely not eager to run down there and give the man my money. Let's just say that. But I hope you brothers out here having a good time, being safe, not driving drunk, um, not putting yourself in bad situations. You know what I mean? We really got a lot of work ahead of us, guys. We really do. We got to look at the situation and be honest, okay, about what our standing is in this country as far as what we need to get where we got to go. And I'm telling you, any of us that still think that the government is going to be your bailout, you're sadly mistaken, and you are going to be in a position, and nobody's going to be able to help you because those days are long gone. And hell, black men never really benefited from anything did the government do anything really to directly benefit them? Okay, especially since the 1960s. Let's be real. So literally for about 6 decades now, it's been pretty much nothing. Okay, so let's not act like somehow we got so much to be grateful for that our government did for us, because that's a joke. It really is. I mean, and you're talking about this president? Please don't make me laugh. This is the guy who passed in 1994, who drafted and sponsored the 1994 crime bill. And just go and look at what that did to a lot of black families, putting aside the crimes that people want to rail against. But the reality is, some of the sentencing wasn't as much about punishment as we want to claim it was. It was more about collective punishment, actually, which is actually, that term's probably not being really used in this context. But if you think about it, that's what it is when you do things that ultimately, if a person has a family, look, at the end of the day, a person served a sentence. There shouldn't be things that are barring them from being able to participate properly because you put all these restraints and extra punishments on somebody to basically keep them in a down position, let's be honest. Even after they've technically served a sentence, but not when you are put into permanent second class citizen status, you know, for things that probably were done for economic reasons in a lot of cases. But, the argument always is, oh, you did this to yourself. In other words, you didn't comply, so therefore you got what you got. Well, it's kind of hard maybe to comply with things that you know ultimately are getting in your way of what you need to do. And again, I'm not justifying crime, but what I will say is that we do have a culture of criminalization in this country that have criminalized people who otherwise probably shouldn't be criminalized. We can't deny that fact either. And that's still something that has to be considered into all conversations in regard to government, politics, and the justice system. Okay? That's something that we're not going to sit here and act like we have an infallible system. Only people who believe that are people who feel like the one, the system don't affect them, or two, they agree with the way the system works because it works against maybe the people who they want it to, you know. So, and to their benefit. But again, you know, I'm looking for a significant amount of changes in my life this year. That is my goal, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary to make that happen. I'm 52 years old, and I have been fighting for basically my entire life for some of the most simplest things. And I'm no stranger to that. I'm still doing it now. And you know what? I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fight as long as I got fight in me to get the things that I'm trying to acquire, despite whatever the constraints and obstacles have been. The one thing I got is the will to not give up and not quit. Because at the end of the day, we can all lose, but you're going to be a loser if you're a quitter. You're a permanent loser. And that's one thing I'm not, is a quitter. And what I figure is that when you have family to take care of, or friends that are basically family, or children to take care of, you have to stand up, be a man, and take care of those responsibilities. Now, mind you, I'm not. When I say this, please don't take it that I'm excluding women from that equation. I'm not, but I'm saying just from a man's perspective, as a man, that is our reality. And that's a duty that goes beyond whatever someone else doesn't do their job. You still have to do your job. And the same thing goes for women. Unfortunately, we have a society that has basically allowed women to not be held in a lot of ways to the same account. They claim that they want to be equality. They want equality, but a lot of times a lot of them don't want to be equal when it comes to consequences or accountability. So we've allowed this. This has been allowed to go on. It's how it's been promoted, really. And so, yeah, you can be a man out here doing everything you can do, and then you can have somebody working against you. Clearly, that goes on every day. And the system being the way that it is a lot to do with it. So laws have to be changed. And then we're going to fight for that. Okay, people will say, well, we can't. Yes, we can. Because the thing is, understand that if you are a participant in the system on local level, not just on federal level, but on local levels, because most politics is local. It's not as much of a case of politics that you're dealing with, on the federal level. The politics that affects you every day generally are local elections, which a lot of people don't participate in. They don't pay attention to it. And if you work on a small level, it's going to translate over. If you do something on a micro level, it's going to translate further on the macro level. It's just a matter of time. If there's enough cohesiveness and there's enough of a united front on certain issues as Americans, if we can actually get united on certain things and say, listen, we all agree to this and we fight for this, we can win. But of course, we have a society, a media, and companies and government that wants us to stay divided. It always comes down to divide and conquer. It's always about that, and it always will be about that to the people who are in power, who wants to gain power and maintain power. It's always going to be about that. It's always going to be part of strategy. It might be done differently. Might use different propaganda. They might use different outlets to push their propaganda or censorship and all those things that they like to utilize to try to maintain, society a certain way, which is still not really working. But they're going to try. They're not going to stop until they get checked. And at some points, they do get checked. But the thing is, we can check them a lot harder than we do. A lot of folks have a very defeatist and negative attitude. And that sitting around saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it, means, okay, you have to accept whatever you get in life. You're acknowledging that you're willing to. It means you're not willing to fight for better. You're not willing to fight for your rights that were endowed to you by the framers of the Constitution, the founding fathers, and those things. Okay, we have what's called the three charters of freedom in this country, which starts out as the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the U.S. Constitution. The three charters of freedom. And whether people know it or not, a lot of that doctrine still applies to our politics today, including the Declaration of Independence, which you don't hear much about. And one of the main things, inalienable rights that we have as men or as human beings is in this country is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now think about that. Think of those three things and realize how much of those things have been infringed upon by your own government and by the overall system. Okay? You don't have healthy food, you're being deprived of life. If you are going to be your pursuit of happiness, think about it this way, or your liberty. We have a $34 trillion debt. That we have these politicians that have been raising this debt ceiling for years and years. They've raised it since Biden's been in office, and they probably want to try to raise it again because this is the way they steal from all of us. This is what they do. This is what they do. Because what they do, ultimately, look at it this way. Every time they raise the debt ceiling, they put debt on your unborn, on your posterity, your unborn children, your unborn grandchildren, great grandchildren. They're putting the debt on people who are not even alive yet. And the problem is you have a very low, we're below replacement level. So guess what? Unfortunately, raising the debt is going to do nothing but make the market crash, the system crash even faster when you don't have enough people being born to help to pay that debt. And because you have these oligarchs and these people who are just have avarice and insatiable greed that they just have to have it all. I mean, these people are psychopathic. They got to think about it, right? Somebody like Elon Musk is worth a couple $100 billion. That is an obscene amount of money for any one person to have. Let me tell you something. It's hard enough to be a millionaire in this world. It's hard enough to be a millionaire. And these people have become billionaires. And I can tell you, it's not that I'm not taking nothing away from the work they've done or credit to them about the success they've had. But the reality is, I'm sorry, but to become a billionaire, you need a little more than just, you need some help, okay? You need help from the government. Somehow you have to have some type of contract, something where you're going to get preferential treatment over other businesses. Come on. I know that, Elon Musk is worth so many $1 million. Here's the reality. A lot of you don't even know that Elon Musk is not the only one that is producing electric cars. All right. You hear about Teslas because you're in America, but guess what? Somebody who was a former UN weapons inspector and a military intelligence agent, very credible one, was on YouTube on a video I was watching saying about how he was in China and actually have electric cars in China, and they're better than the Teslas. Now, you're not going to hear about that on mainstream media. You're certainly not going to hear that. And the thing about it is, Elon has benefited from some of these bills in Congress, like the Green New Deal, all that stuff. Look, people bought stocks like Nancy Pelosi bought some Tesla stocks, bought some Roblox stocks. There's somebody who's in Congress, right, who's trading stocks. So the incentive to push legislation to help fill her coffers is right there in her face. But they don't bar these people in Washington from trading. Now, boy, talk about the ultimate insider trading. You're talking about somebody like Martha Stewart, who went to prison for a year and had to come out on an ankle bracelet. Like she ever did anything in her life that she needed to be on an ankle bracelet. That was all for the point of a humiliation ritual. That's what that was. And that was James Comey was the prosecutor in that case that did that. That was Obama's guy who did that, just so you know. That woman had never been in trouble for anything else, but she got in trouble for supposedly getting a stock tip from an insider trader who went to prison, and then because I guess she wouldn't rap or whatever, I don't quote me on that, but I'm assuming she didn't give the prosecution what they wanted, the satisfaction they wanted in some way, so that was how they were going to punish her. And the thing about it is that, you got people that are in Congress for decades that are sitting there inside trading every day, and nothing's being done about it. Absolutely nothing. They're just getting away with it, and that's just it. I mean, and they'll sit there and talk about how great of a businesswoman she is. Yeah, she's a great businesswoman because she's in Congress and she's able to basically push legislation that she knows she's going to make money off of. And that's what's been going on. Same way we got some of these quote unquote progressives, the squad, these are the ones that's supposed to be about all this work, and they're not, because they never push for, Medicare for all, a minimum wage, okay, single player plan. They didn't push for any of that stuff. Stuff that they ran on, and of course when it came down to it, what did they do? Oh, she's Mama Bear, right? Quote unquote AOC. And they just voted right back in to be speaker. Not even with a challenge for a vote on any of the stuff that they ran on. So that shows you how sanctimonious they are. Now, regardless what their intent was when they were running, they certainly turned tail once they got there. So they sold out. Let's just call it what it is. And there's a lot of Republican sides too. So I didn't got on both sides of the aisle. But my thing is, that's the reason why us as black men need to stop thinking like other portions of our community. We need to look at the things that we are trying to gain control of, or being able to so-called be leadership positions in the so-called community. At the end of the day, that means you have to be in a position of power to do that. You have to be able to do things from, as Angry Man would say, the position of power. And that's not just in your relationship, that's just in your general life. Because ultimately, you know that you're in the bottom class in this country. Let's be honest, you are. Now, I don't care what anybody else tells you, you're in the bottom class. People are automatically looking for you to be the first person who's late, the first person to steal something, the first person to do anything that's going to be seen as part of the stereotype that's on you. Whether you are that person or not, you could be the most competent person in the room, you could be the most talented person in the room, but first thing they're going to look at mainly, if we're talking about hell, even black folks, they're going to look for, okay, what issues is this person going to bring to the table that's stereotypical for people of this persuasion. That's going to happen whether people come out and say it or not in a lot of cases. Like people of your own same complexion. So don't think that any of us are any somehow exempt from that mentality. Hell, a lot of times we're worse to our own than other people on the outside, let's be honest. But anyway, I'm looking for definitely to have some changes this year, some positive changes, and I want to do everything I can to make it happen. So I'm hoping you brothers do the same thing. Go out there, and if you got a tax return, come and think about what you're gonna do with that money. I mean, really, we got to work on all the basic stuff. We got to, we got credit. We need to build our credit up. Another thing that a lot of us need to do, and I've been on this for a few years now, which is we need to start going into conventional trades. Meaning, we need to be, even if they're hobbies, you need to learn how to build some structures, learn how to work on a car, learn how to do some things, basically household maintenance, learn how to do some plumbing, learn how to do some, painting, some remodeling. You know what I'm saying? We need to be able to do things where we can get things done and get those skills that we don't have to pay other people to do. And we can save money at the same time. We can deny those same groups that are basically using the money that we give them to beat us overhead politically with, not to deny them our resources. Okay, you need to be in a position where you are not completely succumb or a slave to having to pay for services rendered for everything that you get done. Listen, I had to change the shower head in my bathroom, okay? And it hasn't been changed in years. And I'll tell you something, I bought tools, everything else that I need to help me do it, okay? I changed the shower head, but the thing was, I had to change the shower arm because it got broke up at the end when I took off the old shower head. It was probably been on there for 2 decades, basically. Probably had all kinds of, the build up and deposits around there. So I took that off. I had to put a new shower on there. I put one in there. When I put it in there, I found that I couldn't turn the thing all the way. It would still leak. And when I noticed I had to cut into the back of the wall of the shower. I had to cut into it with a knife to get to the back area of where the arm was, right? And the head, where water comes up for the shower. And I found that they had put some tape on there. Why? Is because for some reason the way that's threaded, you can't quite turn the shower arm straight, like 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock down. It's tilted a little bit towards 7 o'clock, so it's a little tilted down towards the right, but it's still down at the end of the day. It's about as close down as you can get. So guess what? I put, plumber's tape on there. I put pipe dope on there. But here's the thing: you can only put, and that's what I mean. There's things that you have to do. You need to get some hands-on skills, guys. You can do this stuff. Let me tell you something. With the information age, you can watch a lot of videos on YouTube. Take advantage of that stuff. Don't say you can't. Okay, you all got cell phones. You can go on there and pull up on Google a lot of instructions, do things. Now you can compare videos to some things that are better instruction-wise than others, and there's some things you'll find out on your own. For example, I watched 2 or 3 videos about what I was doing as far as changing the shower head, but you know what they didn't prepare me for? The whole aspect of somebody putting tape on there, because that was one thing that wasn't covered. The reason why they did that is because whoever had done this originally probably ran into the same problem. But the solution I found was only put maybe 1.5 wraps of plumber's tape, and then put some pipe dope on the tape, right, around the threading. When you turn it, I had to do it a few times to get the right amount of turn so I could get it down as close as I could get. And I was able to do it now. It doesn't leak at all. So I fixed the problem. Great new shower head. Got a double shower head. I got the handheld plus just the one. That's the stationary one. You have both in different settings and everything like that. So I paid a little bit so I could have something decent for once in my life. I'm just joking. But yep, I fixed that. I fixed the tub drain. I switched that. I changed the overflow plate. I got that taken care of. I mean, I'm not a plumber. Listen, I fixed both the sinks in my upstairs, downstairs bathroom. You know why? Because I took the time. And I also took the money, invested my money in buying some tools. So, because this is what you got to realize. If you buy some of these tools, buy them a piece at a time. If you buy the right tools, I got news for you. If you do the job yourself, you're going to basically, right there, is going to cover your cost for the tool. It's going to pay itself off. I'll tell you something. I had to do the water pump a few times. Well, I broke one of the bolts on the water pump in the mount. That was a problem. I sold the car, but I should have used. I was going to use a screw extractor with a right angle drill to get that out. Ultimately, was what I have to do. But anyway, don't want to get too much on the technical side of things. But ultimately, it would have cost me almost $400 to pay. I had a guy give me a quote. That was a mobile mechanic. He was going to charge me almost $400 to do that. And I watched a YouTube video and did it myself. And you know what's funny? After watching the video, I found an easier way to do it than the guy who did the video, who originally I got the information from. But I was able to do that. Okay. And you can learn more and more pieces at a time. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying do something that's, if you break it, that you're going to cost $1,000, but something like that is a part that ultimately, I mean, I've done different things. I've done different things with different cars. I've had to learn because I don't have money to give a mechanic every time I lose my car. And even if you have the money, brother, there's money that you can save getting that tool, doing it yourself, and save money and use it for something else. We need to be in a position where we're not so free to give money to people, particularly outside of the community. Because you got to look at politically where some of these groups that are basically voting against you, where are they getting their money from? If they're getting their money in your community and they're voting to have all kinds of, say, for example, racist bills get passed or things that's going to hurt your community that is going to put you in a bad position, don't support those businesses. But we've just been so used to doing this type of stuff. We've been used to just taking people's abuse and thanking them for it. That's what that amounts to. Think about that. A group of people abuse you, disregards you, disrespects you, and then you pay them for it. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. Why would you think any group of people respect you? Why would they respect you knowing that you'll accept their disrespect and still support them? They're not going to stop. Matter of fact, you're encouraging them to do more in the long run. But anyway, looking for this to be a good year. I really am. I've been saying that for a while. I think I'm in a position right now where some significant things can happen. But I can tell you what, I mean, really, just, I think this year really could be our year in a lot of ways if we do things right. If we do things right politically as well. I'm talking about the ballot boxes. I'm talking about the whole thing, getting involved in all that stuff. There's something. There was an article written years ago on a website that I think got deleted a long time ago, but the article was about in the 2016 election. At the time when Trump first ran, there were two other people from the Green Party that were running. It was Jill Stein and Ujam Baraka. Really, really great brother. But anyway, she was running for president. He was for VP. And the thing was, the article was making the case why the black community should vote for the Green Party or vote for Jill Stein. And what the article was basically pointing out was it wasn't about voting for her to get her elected or vote for the Green Party to get anybody elected. The idea, and this I think was a good idea, whether it would have worked or not, we don't know. We don't know if it would because it never worked out that way. But at the end of the day, there are different policies in the government that if some of these political parties, for example, I'm with the understanding that if you run under a certain party and you are able to get a certain percentage of the overall vote, for example, if you get 5%, you're supposed to get like $20 million for the next your next presidential election. Your party gets that money. Now that means basically if you're able to garner enough support, enough votes to get a significant, in other words, government will basically fund you to give you some more money, basically. And I think maybe 2%, something like that, you get like 10 million, something like that. I believe it's something along those lines. And the argument that was being made was that, listen, based on the percentage of our community, we could get that party by ourselves with no one else's help by voting for the Green Party and getting them putting them in a position to get that money. Why? Because now the Green Party would be obligated to do things for the black community. Because if they're the ones that got them that percentage of the votes they need to get that money, then obviously they need to share that money with that group because that group obviously pulled a lot of resources for you. Now, don't allow yourself to be disrespected by them just because, okay, we'll throw you, no, make sure you get what you deserve. Fight and say, listen, if we vote for you, we want, see, that's the thing, you need to tell those parties, listen, this is what we want. And they need to basically make the case and promise that to you, that if they get in this position, not even that you get elected, if they get enough of anything to help to pursue the party's aims in the long run, you still should get benefits all the way up till someone gets elected president. And hell past that, for that matter, if you're still part of the group. And we got to start thinking like that. We have to start thinking like that. It's not all about the numbers. We have smaller demographics of people who are in control of so many things, okay, in this country. Much smaller group than Foundation Black Americans. I'm not talking about Haitians, Jamaicans, black immigrants. I'm talking about black people in this country. See, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is that just being called black puts us in a trick bag, because what it does is it makes it so that we just get to be erased. And that ignores our historical experience. And that's not right. Because you don't just get to be, people don't come from races, people come from nations and tribes. And ultimately we come from nations too. It's just the fact that we were disenfranchised when we were brought to this country. It doesn't change the fact that we did come from other nations. That's still a fact, despite whether we can identify what nation we came from or not. The fact is we did not come from a race. We came from a tribe or a nation like every other group of people in this world. If you become a slave, you become disenfranchised, then you may not be able to trace your lineage because of the act of slavery. That's why I think it's hilarious that you have these people making complaints that we should give money to other people, but these same people have a major issue about the argument of giving foundational black Americans, not just black people, but foundational black Americans, descendants of American slaves, blood that goes to the killing field of the South, like people like me and some other friends. One specific group. And before anybody says, well, how would they be able to define that? Guess what? There's already been a case to be made that there are some censuses that they could go by. There's 2 censuses they could go by, and if their names or relatives of that, you'd be eligible for benefits. Problem is, let's be honest, this country ain't interested in giving black people reparations, because let's be real, they can say whatever they want. The reason why they're not is because ultimately there are people in this country that want to keep black Americans a exploited class, because there is a benefit to doing it. To have an exploited class in general sense, doesn't matter what the race is, but to have an exploited class is always a benefit to the people who are part of the bourgeoisie or the higher end, aristocrats, whatever you want to call them, because you have somebody else to basically take the weight of the blunt of the you know getting the ends and getting someone else to be the means rather than yourself. That's been going on for years. And I know there'll be some folks that'll sit there and say, "Oh, there's black people that own slaves." Nobody with an intellectually honest bones really believes that. Even if you want to make the case there were some black slave owners, let's not act like those people had any rights. Because when you have a movie like 12 Years a Slave, which is based on a true story, that movie right there went to show you that if there was any black slave owners, they were still compromised ultimately. And you don't hear much about them. You don't hear much about, honestly, how often do you hear about black people who have inheritance from that they got from other black slave owners? I'll wait. How many do you hear where somebody said, "Hey, I'm black and my family owned, they were black and they owned slaves, and this is where I got my money from"? You almost never hear that. Not to say that there wasn't some, but I think there was some context to those definitions too of who was a slave owner, because some of these people were freed by their white slave masters, which means that once they were free, they were able, and not for nothing, some of them actually had these people as slaves in order to keep them under the radar. So it wasn't always the case that they were really slaves. It was because whatever the laws were in that area, that they couldn't just be free. They had to be under somebody's rule, based on the fact they were probably born into slavery to begin with. So it could have been done as a means of protection in some cases. But to act like that black people had any real control over the transatlantic slave trade is a freaking joke. It's just a lie made up by people who want to create this false equivalence to claim that black people benefited from slavery in this country. Well, please somebody explain to me where the benefits are. And when they claim that show a significant, not some anecdotal evidence, show some significant amount of black slave owners that you claim actually created something in this country from their slave owning. I'll wait. Or they built something, or there's some heritage. Because look, there'd be some black people in the country. Look, I can tell you now, I'm sure there's some Africans that probably can make that case more than black Americans. Quite sure about that. I'm sure there's some black Africans that can probably say that their family owned slaves a lot faster than the ones in America. Because let's be honest, a lot of them were the very ones who sold some of my ancestors into slavery. But here's the thing now, when people make that case, yes, that's true, but at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that exempts the people who bought slaves from reparations. That just means you get two people on the hook for it, because that means both of them owe a debt. That means the seller and the buyer owe a debt. Because guess what? You wouldn't make that argument about somebody who has child pornography. You wouldn't say, well, we shouldn't bust him for having child pornography, but we should only bust the people who sold it. You wouldn't say, okay, somebody bought a child sex slave. They paid for her for the night, paid for him for the night. But we're not going to punish the person who bought the child to have sex with him because, hey, they sold it to him, so therefore that's what happened. But we just got to go to the seller. It's like some girl gets raped. Oh, shouldn't have been wearing that skirt. Oh, she wore that skirt, so it happened. That's the kind, you wouldn't make those arguments, but somehow we have no problem with trying to make that rationalization when it comes to reparations for FBA people. We don't have a problem making the argument. Right now we got people who, we have a country the size of New Jersey that expects us to keep giving them billions of dollars a year. And then we have a government that wants to give them more to basically, slaughter a group of people and basically run them out of the country. That's just the bottom line. All right, the country they claim was theirs back. Some of them will use the case that thousands of years ago. That'd be like if my parents owned a house and they sold the house 50 years ago, and then somebody else owns it, but I know that my parents owned the house for us to go back and say, hey, listen, you guys got to get out because my parents owned this 50 years ago, so it's still ours. This is what we got going on. We got stuff like that going on. And then when it comes to the reparations argument for black folks, there's every excuse in the book. You got Negroes and the congressional black talkers, as someone eloquently put that, Professor Black Truth. That's what they are. They just talk. They don't do anything. They're basically stall. They use stall tactics. They never do anything for the black community. But yet you got Negroes that still been voting for some of these same people for decades, and they've done nothing that's moved the black community forward an inch. That's Maxine Waters. That's James Clyburn. That's Bobby Rush. There's a whole bunch of them. Sheila Jackson Lee. There's a whole bunch of them. It's all nothing but a show. But at the end of the day, don't get nothing done. Nothing of significance. So, anyway, be alert, be aware, and be smart, brothers. Say yourself and build on yourself and protect yourself. Okay? I'm out.